Hey YouTube and fellow members of the Deakin Deck Regiment, this is Mr. Fishy here with yet another episode of our weekly Wednesday workshops. This episode we're going to teach you how to shuffle. So, what is shuffling? Shuffling is the process of randomizing the cards in our decks through mixing the cards together. It's important to shuffle your deck effectively because often when we build a deck of trading cards, we will put similar cards together to look at our deck's structure. So if we're unable to shuffle properly, these cards will stay together and we end up with clumping. Here for you now are some of the most popular and effective ways to shuffle a deck of trading cards. The Overhand Shuffle. The Overhand Shuffle is the most common shuffling method for players to start with. It randomizes your cards pretty well, though is not always the best at declumping. Some players also like to use the Overhand Shuffle in between using other methods for added randomization. To perform the Overhand Shuffle, start with your deck of cards in one hand. Then, take sections of cards from the top of the deck and move it into your opposite hand. Keep repeating this, placing the new cards on top of the old cards, until your entire deck is now in your opposite hand. At speed, this is what it looks like. The Pile Shuffle. The Pile Shuffle is a shuffling method that should be used in conjunction with other shuffling methods. It prevents clumping, but is easily manipulated, so should not be your only shuffling method used. To perform the Pile Shuffle, take your deck of cards and one at a time take cards from the top and arrange them into as many piles as you wish. Then, continue taking cards from the top and placing them on top of these piles. To help add randomization, feel free to mix up where you're placing the cards and in what order. Keep doing this until your entire deck is now in these piles. Then, get the piles of cards and place them together. The Weave Shuffle. The Weave Shuffle is one of the more popular shuffling methods for advanced players. It breaks up clumps and randomizes quite well, and is simple to do and doesn't put a lot of strain on your cards. To perform the Weave Shuffle, split your deck into two piles. Then weave the piles together, preferably at the closed end of your deck rather than the open top. Then simply slide the piles together. Additionally, you can add flourishes, such as letting the cards fall. To do this, have one pile of cards resting on your palm with your thumb on the back. With your other hand, have one finger on the top, your thumb on the side, and the rest of your fingers on the other side. Then, release the cards towards your thumb, moving the thumb backwards. Release slowly and the cards will fall into place. Also, you can perform a cascade finish. To do this, once the two piles are weaved together, place your thumbs on top and have your fingers down the sides of either pile. Then, simply bend the cards upward and slowly release. The Hindu Shuffle. The Hindu Shuffle is popular among Yu-Gi-Oh! And Vanguard players. The downside of the Hindu Shuffle is that it cannot normally be your only shuffling technique, as some cards may not change position at all. It randomizes quite well, though it has to be performed a lot to remove clumping, and takes a bit of practice to be able to get up to speed. To perform the Hindu Shuffle, hold your deck in one hand, with your thumb and fingers around the deck, holding it in place. Then, take a packet of cards from the inside of the deck, pull it out and move it to the top. Alternatively, you can do a variant, where you move the packets from the side rather than from behind. To do this, hold your deck in the same way but from the top and bottom, pull a packet out of the middle and move it to the top. Then repeat as necessary. The Manjian Shuffle. The Manjian Shuffle is probably the least popular shuffle on this list, though variants of it are occasionally used by players to mix up their shuffling style. It can prevent clumping and randomizes quite well, though is either time-consuming or not as effective as other methods. To perform the Manjian Shuffle, take one card from the top of your deck and move it into your opposite hand. Then, take the next card from the top of your deck and put it on top of this new pile. Then take the top card and move it to the bottom of your new pile. Then continue alternating between the top and the bottom. Alternatively, because of how time-consuming the first method is, it's often easier to just move piles of cards, rather than single cards. To do this, hold your deck as you would for the Overhand Shuffle. Then, move one pile from your deck to your opposite hand. Then move the next pile to the top. Pile after that to the bottom, then continue until the entire deck has transferred over to your opposite hand. The Riffle Shuffle. The Riffle Shuffle is used largely by experienced players, as it is more difficult to learn than other shuffling methods, so normally only players dedicated to the game invest the time in learning it. It randomizes as well as the Weave Shuffle, though looks more professional and extravagant when performed correctly. To perform the Riffle Shuffle, cut your deck into two piles. Then, supporting each pile in each of your hands, have your index finger behind the pack. Then, lift and release, weaving the two piles together. Then simply push the two piles together. Try to find a place to riffle from that works best for you. I prefer the bottom edge of my deck. Additionally, you can perform a cascade finish, similar to what we did with the weave shuffle. To do this, once the two piles of cards are together, simply bend them upward. To do this, once the two piles are together, simply bend them up and sigh. To do this, simply press the two. Now here's some footage of Mr. Merchant correctly performing the Riffle Shuffle with a cascade finish. The cut. Traditionally, in competitive card games, players will offer their deck to their opponent once they have finished shuffling so that their opponent may cut their deck. This is done as a sign of good faith to their opponent, as if they were trying to cheat and put their ideal cards on top of their deck. When their opponent cuts it, those cards will be in the middle of the deck afterwards. Cutting the deck doesn't do anything towards declumping or randomizing, but is more a failsafe against cheating. Though in some serious competition, players will shuffle their opponent's deck when it is offered to them to cut. To perform the cut, take a pile of cards off the top of your opponent's deck, as many or as few as you want, move them to the bottom of their deck. Additionally, instead of just cutting your opponent's deck once, you may cut it into multiple piles, and then place these together. Note, if your opponent's shuffling methods are suspicious, or you don't believe that they shuffled sufficiently, you are welcome to shuffle your opponent's deck when they offer it to you to cut. Though it's always a good idea to try and avoid shuffling your opponent's cards aggressively. Damaging your opponent's cards or sleeves is a no-no. The Dean Shuffle. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of WWW. Join us again next week for another trading card game tutorial. If you have any ideas for future videos, let us know in the comments. To see us out, here's a few of our members showing us how it's done. Every day I'm shuffling. That was loud.
That was really loud.
Do we need to do it again? Please say no.
Yes.